if you guys remember, The Batman came out in 2022. It was directed by director Matt Reeves and written by Matt Reeves as well. It starred Robert Pattinson as a younger Batman. It went on to make, I think, $770+ million at the box office on a $200 million budget. And given the struggles that DC had been having at the time trying to get things right with their movies, it was considered a pretty rousing success for them. So a sequel was greenlit immediately, and they said that that sequel was going to be out in October of 2025. We've now had 8,000 different delays on this movie. It has once again been pushed to October of 2027 now.
Jesus.
And director-writer Matt Reeves, Matt Reeves has dropped out of directing duties for this film.
I just think anything exceeding 3 years for a sequel means just give up. Well, if it's anything more than 3 years between the first movie and the sequel, you clearly are not serious.
Well, the worst part is that the whole selling point was it was supposed to be like young, unpolished Bruce Wayne. And by the time that I tweeted earlier, I said, by
Robert
the time
Pattinson
they get done,
is going to be a senior citizen by the time they get this out.
Instead of a Bat credit card, he's going to have a Bat AARP card that he's going to use to get people. And look, if I was to give you my thoughts on the Batman, when I saw it, I thought it was fine. I think it was theater haze, meaning that I liked it more because I was in the theater. I tried to watch it at home again. Too long, too boring. I don't care about it.
It was awful. It was remarkably bad, and I was shocked that people liked it. I was shocked at the relative success that it had at the box office because it was one of the most painfully boring movies I've ever watched. Seriously, I could barely get through it.
I'm pleased that I never saw it.
Yeah. It was like getting water tortured. It was awful.
It wasn't that bad, but it was definitely
terrible.
I mean, it breaks my number one rule, which is that it's exceedingly long, like annoyingly. It's like 2 hours and 55 minutes.
Look, just make a Robert Pattinson Sigma grind set edit. You don't need to make a whole movie out of it.
I don't even know what any of that is.
He's doing
Sigma grind set edit?
He's doing these like puzzles, and then there's the Riddler, and he's like moaning weirdly all the time.
And then the music cuts in.
Yeah. And it's just it was never good.
And the Riddler somehow took on Gotham City with all of 500 people following him on 4chan. Here's the thing. So since James Gunn took over DC, it's become a completely different ballgame now. So James Gunn is in charge of what's called the Gods and Monsters, which is all of the superhero movies, whereas the Batman movies that Matt Reeves was making were qualified as Elseworld stories under an Elseworlds banner. And Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca, who are in charge of Warner Brothers Pictures, have thrown their support behind James Gunn, who they say with their first viewings of cuts of Superman say that they're in good hands. I still have my own questions about that because I think he's made Superman more about himself than about the actor playing Superman or even Superman the character. But when you have new management in charge and they can't seem to even get a script out of the writer, being Matt Reeves, and now that director has gone on to drop out of directing duties, I have to wonder if there's a little bit of a curse going on over there. So if you guys remember, Ben Affleck was supposed to direct his own Batman movie when he was still playing Batman, and that was when it all fell apart for him, and in a lot of ways fell apart for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
He was supposed to star and direct.
And write his own Batman movie. There's been a bunch of great retrospectives that have been made about that falling apart, but then you also had what happened with Zack Snyder. He had to drop out of the last Justice League movie because of tragedy within his family, and now what has been said since January from sources like Grace Randolph, who got a bunch of backlash for it, and Paul Tassi, is that Matt Reeves has his own health crisis going on, which is preventing him from getting this movie made. Now, he hasn't made any statement on the matter or confirmed that in any way, but there was a whole bunch of backlash about people reporting on this, which called into question for a lot of people, like, what is the role of people in this space talking about, unconfirmed reports. But the thing is that was in January before he dropped out as director. actor. If anything now, if the fact that he's now no longer handling directing duties, that seems to signal that something is preventing all of this stuff from getting done and getting work done, whether that's his own health issues or incompetence over at Warner Brothers is anyone's guess, or just the fact that it's been pushed to the back burner because they're focused on James Gunn and everything that he's doing with Superman and the spin-off movies that are going to be in his part of the universe. I say just cancel it.
It doesn't need to exist.
Look, if the first movie was really, really good, right? And then you get these extensive delays. It's still not a great look because, again, the whole point of the story was supposed to be young, unpolished Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. He's got a suit that he looks like he's made himself. Whatever. I get it. But now he's like got his crutches and his walker, and Robert Pattinson's made like 6,000 movies since then. The bloom is in a lot of ways off the rose on that story idea. And if he is so old by the time the third one comes out that they have to adapt a Batman Beyond story because he's too old to play Batman and they got to get Terry McGinnis in there, I don't think that it really works. And I think that for the most part, Warner Brothers, what they want to do, I think that Robert Pattinson, this is my idea, and I'm just going to go off on a mild tangent. Robert Pattinson actually has great comedic timing as an actor in a dark comedic sense. And I think...
What, like Mickey 17?
Like that, but in general, I think it's just because he's British and, you know, they've got a dark sense of humor to begin with.
Sure.
A dry sense of humor. I think what you do is you just abandon the project as a whole, and then you actually do bring him into the less serious Gods and Monsters universe of James Gunn as some type of darkly humorous Batman in that world. Now, if you still want to continue with the Matt Reeves-esque stuff, then you better back up the money truck to Colin Farrell for the Penguin Season 2 Electric Boogaloo. But even he said that he's not really if I remember correctly, not really super interested in that.
No, he said that he's like actually not going to do it.
Because the makeup takes 10,000 hours to put on and stuff like that. I don't know. Like, it's like you said, I just don't know if people are going to care by the time this actually comes out. 2027 is 5 years later.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I think that it's probably a mix of incompetence and either health issues for Matt Reeves, or some people thought misconduct behind the scenes. Yeah. And we don't know, but I don't really agree with the backlash to commenting on it or speculating about it.
In the chat, I have no idea what they're talking about, but Ben Canceled says, or no, not Ben Canceled. Real Data Police says Independence 2 was the worst movie I'd seen in years. Yeah, and that was like 20 years after the original Independence Day, which came out in 1995 or 97, and then Independence Day 2 came out in like 2017 and something. Did have great trailers, but was a genuinely bad movie.
But how old is too old? Because Robert Pattinson is currently 38 years old.
Again, that's not a very young Batman.
And they have not filmed anything.
No. Starting filming this coming, not even this year, but in 2026.
So that's pushing it.
Yeah. I don't think that there's going to be a market for this in the same way.
I think that the amount of praise the first Batman with Robert Pattinson got was merely proof that we're inundated with so much slop that our standards have just been collectively lowered. It was objectively not a good movie.
I think part of it was also like, look, when they were doing the other DC movies at that time was when they were trying to copy Marvel's formula and failing to do so. Meaning that whether it was, I guess Aquaman made a lot of money in 2018, but past that, you know, it was a bunch of movies that tried to copy the Marvel formula in tone. And the Batman was a return to a unapologetically serious movie, and people were kind of enamored with the idea that we could get that type of film again. But it was just overly long and overly like it took itself somehow a Batman movie. 3 hours. It was 2 hours and 55 minutes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Is Zoe Kravitz gonna be in the sequel?
I'm sure she will.
What
I'm
they're
sure she
even
will.
planning to do.
I would be interested to know in the chat, guys, whether you have any interest. Avatar does not count. I see somebody saying Avatar 2 is good. I actually liked the Avatar sequel, but I kind of consider James Cameron. James Cameron is his own entity, and that's one of the movies that's coming out this year is the third one. And I imagine that right now, like all the computers are actually just like coding files for Avatar. They started now, and they'll finish right around Christmas.
It's going to take a severe toll on the environment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, when you really think about it.
Even though the first Avatar, at least, was a commentary on climate change.
I saw somebody say...
The first Avatar was just barely a commentary on climate change. It was just a rehash of Pocahontas.
Yeah, pretty much.
It says in the chat, Adam Ledgway says, Matt finished War of the Planet of the Apes, then took it from 2022 and War was in 2017. Yeah, it's a long time between movies, but there weren't as many years between the 3 Planet of the Apes movies that he did. But again, if we're to at least put some credence in the idea that perhaps there's something going on that's preventing him from getting this movie made, it's not a good sign for DC fans.
I have it wrong. Robert Pattinson is actually 38 years, 11 months, and 24 days old.
So he's basically 39.
And in the context of the Batman 2, it's coming up on May 8th.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, maybe was it May 16th? In the context of the Batman 2, Robert Pattinson has joked about his age, saying, I'm going to be the effing old Batman for the sequel.
Yeah. They're going to have to do
so
Batman.
Even he knows it.
They're going to have to do the Dark Knight Returns again by the time he gets there for the second one. And for the third one, they're going to have to do Batman Beyond. It's not a good look for DC fans. It'll be interesting to look at, guys, because there's a fair amount of interest around Superman, but I would concur, I would say that James Gunn has put too much of the focus on himself and less of the focus on David Corenswet, and you can't really get people to give up on the Henry Cavill thing if you can't put forth a Superman that can kind of stand on his own 2 feet. So if that does succeed, it does well, and that movie is of the utmost importance to Warner Brothers right now. That's even more of a reason to just push that Batman to the background. The other reason why I kind of balk at the idea that $770 million is a win for them, even though it is financially a $200 million budget with a $770 million return is a success. Batman is your core character to DC, and I think when people think of Batman now, they don't think he should be making less than $1 billion on any movie.
Definitely. But what do you mean by James Gunn making it about himself?
The focus is always about him. Like, they're not marketing it as David Corenswet's Superman movie. It's James Gunn's Superman movie because he's making it. And they're not allowing this actor to find his footing and come out and try to show off what he's capable of doing as a star. Yeah. So it feels like they're hiding him in a way. And it's more about James Gunn's ego and less about the story itself.
I agree.
So
that's what it seems like.
He has a massive ego, and he engages heavily with fans online.
Gets into back and forths with people.
Look, and
tries to correct people.
I really liked his Suicide Squad movie. I thought it was fantastic. I think that he's a good director, but the Suicide Squad characters are not Superman, who should be, leading the movie himself. So we'll have to wait and see, but given all of the news that keeps coming out, it may be worth keeping an eye on something like this because it feels like it's just never-ending bad news for the Batman sequel. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.